welcome to The Problem, a Lockwood & Co. podcast. I'm Caitlin.
I'm Alan.
And today we're talking about the second part of part 4?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay, The Cursed Village, chapters 20 to 22. I miss those days of the first book where splitting everything up evenly worked.
He chooses to do like odd numbers of chapters in these parts. It's very inconsiderate for making podcasts. I don't know what he was thinking.
Let's get him. Stroud going down from North America. We're just going to think bad thoughts. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, what are you trying to... Don't you want multimedia coverage of your... Aren't you thinking about that when you're constructing your book?
How dare he? So, chapter 20. No chatting, I guess. Lockwood & Co. vanquish the shining boy who haunts the inn.
Yeah. I'm sure the inn has a name, but I couldn't be bothered.
It's like the old sun?
That's
or
right.
Something like that?
That's right. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense at any rate.
Not anyone's sun, but the sun of the solar system. Yeah.
And it's old, which old. I guess is true.
It's true.
I guess it does make sense, but it's not something you would ever say, you know?
Yeah, that's weird.
You don't look at the sun and be like, that sucker, he's old.
And is it a pun to be like, of mild? I don't know. It doesn't make sense. The chapter art
is a boy shrink wrapped to a chair.
Yep, that's right. That's exactly what's going on.
It's just a trick of the lighting. But like, I have been shrink wrapped to a chair before.
Of
so
course.
That's where my brain went.
Like everyone has.
It was a very tame hazing thing.
I work in a warehouse, and I had a guy tell me one time, he was like, I worked at this other warehouse, and the hazing thing, we shrink wrap everything because, it's pallets all over the place, and that keeps stuff from falling on your head, in the aisles. And
right, of course.
They shrink wrapped this guy to a pallet and then put it up on the 30-foot tall shelf and then left him there for an hour just hanging off of this thing. And I was like, cool.
No, ours was, we got to sit on chairs very comfortably. Like, it was me and another girl, and our, like the back of our chairs were together, and people just walked around us, shrink wrapping us to the chairs. I don't know what the point was. I don't know who came up with it, but we were teenagers. I don't know.
Right. This is the child, but it's the shining boy.
It's the ghost. Yeah, it's the ghost standing in front of the chair.
Right. To me, it seems like you can see kind of his ribs, like under his clothes. It's just creepy. It's a creepy image. It's very good.
I think he's just kind of emaciated because he's supposed to be like a beggar.
Right.
So it's not like seeing through the ghost type of ribs. It's
that you could see his ribs because he's so skinny.
Yeah, when he was alive. I feel like the last chapter they decided the first ghost they were going to take care of was the one in the inn. So they start off interviewing the residents, and we get the fun juxtaposition of the kid and his dad versus the grandpa who doesn't believe in ghosts.
Mm-hmm. And they keep making fun of all the bad food in this town.
Oh, well, just at the inn, because George buys them some food later.
Right, yeah.
And they're all like, oh, thank God. The word stale cheese is used.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever had, I guess if you leave it out, it goes stale.
I've definitely had stale cheese, yeah.
I've had cheese go off as then, you look at it, you pull something from the back of your fridge and it's covered in green. And you're like, well, that was expensive. Fuck.
I've had it where what I imagine she's talking about is like the cheese gets so hard beyond chewy. It's like, it's almost crunchy.
Ooh.
Yeah. This is why I say they're making fun of the food, because you're like spurred on by tasty bar snacks such as stale cheese sandwiches, pork rinds, and more lemonade. They're really encouraged to get to work so that they can have more options than this place.
But also around like the afternoon, I think Lockwood takes a look outside and he can already see a couple visitors.
It also says later, the atmosphere was dark and sinister. Much the same could be said of the stew. So she's just always throwing shade at their food at this place.
I feel like this whole book we've gotten a lot from Lucy about what food she's eating.
Oh, that's true. This is a foodie book, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, Lockwood's like, I can see visitors out there. And then at that point, Kipps starts a pity party and he's like, well, I can't see anything and I can't do anything. I might as well just tie myself to a post to be bait. And Lockwood's like, that's a good idea, but let's try something else that George has in mind.
I did like the idea of Kipps being the goat from Jurassic Park.
That's exactly, what I think of too.
But then, we get fulfillment of a 4-book thread here where the goggles from book 1 come back into play and they finally have someone who doesn't have psychic abilities who they like.
Yeah. So George gives him the goggles or whatever. He puts them on, the Orpheus Society from John Fairfax stuff, and he's able to see ghosts.
Yeah, and Kipps has this immediate turnaround from being annoyingly self-deprecating to being annoyingly excited.
It's very good. I love it. There's a real theme in this book about ghost stuff. If I don't know what else to call it, the paraphernalia of
ghost technology.
Ghost technology, yeah. It's interesting to me because the goggles are not made for profit, right? And neither was the cloaks, but the stuff that is made for profit is kind of junk. But this stuff works really, really well. Kipps doesn't have to do anything to calibrate it. It's just boom, he's just seeing ghosts. The cloaks work with no problem to protect them from the ghosts. So I don't know, there's just something there about the profit motive makes junk, and this other stuff is very good.
The sort of scientific exploration motive.
Mm-hmm. I really like how it transforms Kipps's attitude, though. Like you said, it's cute.
I don't want to say that we are complimenting these knowledge seekers because, again, they say it in the book. Why doesn't everyone have a pair of these? Yeah.
Kipps immediately is wait a minute, why am I only finding out about this now? And he was at Fitz. So it's the top agency. And we know that Fitz and the Orpheus Society are tight. So why don't they have this stuff?
And they don't really talk about it. They just kind of move on.
Yeah. So after this, they're waiting until midnight, basically.
Right. Yes. For the knocking on the front door of the inn, which sort of signals the haunting. Or if you're the grandpa, bad pipes.
Bad pipes, right. He's got an excuse for everything. They set up defenses all over the place. They make an iron circle. They try to make it so the adults are safer upstairs and stuff like that. And then turn down all the lights and wait.
I just wrote down the word stupid here. And I was like, what was this about? But it was about them using Fahrenheit and not Celsius.
Oh, yeah. It does. Every time they do it, though, I'm like, oh, okay. I understand now. As opposed to them being it's 30, it's 31 over here. I'm like, that's no difference.
But it wouldn't be 30. 30
I don't know.
Super hot in Celsius.
Yeah, see, exactly. I don't know what they're saying.
0 is freezing.
Yeah.
I did also enjoy when they were talking about the grandpa. Lockwood saying the grandpa's trying to stay awake to sort of interrupt what they're doing or sort of catch them out in their he's being a jackass, but to catch them out in their charlatan scammy activities.
Yeah.
And Lockwood's just talking about it, and he's just like he didn't trust his own grandson and wants to see things with his own eyes, which is ironic for a priest.
I thought that too. I was like, why is this guy, he's so invested in not believing. It's really interesting. He used to be a vicar. But I think what he's really interested in is a sense of certainty. And that's what is always invests these kind of denialist narratives, right? COVID can't kill me because I know how the world works. So I don't need to wear a mask because I'm certain. And if you have to follow new rules, you have to start questioning everything. It's just more comfortable to pretend like you know better, I think. So I think that's what this dude is caught in.
I do also think both real world and in world, a lot of people have that sense that they are being lied to from the government or...
And they're not wrong.
The large... and they're not wrong about that, right? but they find the easiest thing, or the thing that is most convenient for them.
Yeah, the comfortable thing. Yeah. Yeah, it's the same in our world too, right? Like,
Yeah,
because we're raised to be like, hey, there's all these commercials telling you that everything is the best thing ever, and you need to learn to not believe everything that you're told. And it's like, got it. Don't believe any news media ever. Got it. And it's like, well, that's not what. Don't believe science ever. Got it. Hold on.
Don't believe any news media ever, except for the one that is legally not allowed to call itself news anymore.
Right. Yeah. The door, they open the door and stuff. There's another moment here with Kipps where he's like, I see it. I see it. He's so like joyful.
Yeah.
And everybody else is afraid. They're like, they feel the ghost fear and all that stuff. I like this because ironically, he's like the most childish person in the group. Like, he's giddy to see the ghosts. He's not on task. And even though he's like the oldest person there, he's the most like struck by the wonder of the whole, supernatural world that he's a part of and stuff.
Yeah.
It makes him fit in better than he ever has because he's being more childlike, I feel like. It's just really good.
I don't know. It just feels right. Like, if you lost your superpowers and then somebody was like, we can't give them back, but we can give you this thing that simulates them.
Yeah.
You'd be super excited about that too.
It's interesting as like a part of the narrative to like in terms of disability and things like that too, to like see these supernatural psychic powers as intrinsic and not extra, and so to like have some way to recover them. I have poor vision, so I wear glasses, and this is essentially the same kind of idea. To think of Kipps as a disabled character who is able to like rejoin his social group by way of this prosthesis.
But they mostly stay huddled in the iron chains and just sort of watch how the haunting plays out, which is really, like, it's disturbing in its low keyness, like not much happens, but the kid just sort of cowers for a bit and then moves and cowers some more.
And seems to like sit on somebody's lap or something.
Right.
It just sucks.
I feel like later on they say like the kid was probably a beggar, and he came to the door asking for scraps or whatever, and then was brought inside and robbed and killed,
or just
and
murdered.
Then they're like, or right, but the way that they say, but well, why would you rob a beggar? Like, that doesn't make sense. And I don't know. To me, it seems like Jonathan Stroud is saying something much worse happened here, but he doesn't want to say it.
Yeah, that's how I took it too. It's very sinister.
Yeah.
Yeah, but basically this kid comes in and then goes over to some corner and then kind of like vanishes, and then they watch it start to replay again, and Grandpa comes downstairs, turns on the lights, which destroys their ability to see the ghost and just messes everything up. Immediately the ghost like tries to kill him.
And mixed with that, you just get the idea that the kid was killed by an older man.
Right, and this triggers him. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And they get the lights off sort of just in time for Lockwood to see the ghost reaching out its fingers towards the grandpa. And then Lockwood like basically jumps on him to push him out of the way, and they go tumbling over and knock over some ship models, and
yeah.
So like the guy thinks they're swindlers and that they destroyed his
antique
family mementos. Yeah.
It's funny too that his careless disbelief puts everybody in danger. I don't know, there's just like something that's kind of a microcosm of the whole problem in a way, of like adults putting children in danger. It's just happening again, and this child was killed by an adult and all that. It's just like a resounding theme. It keeps happening over and over and over. They manage to get this thing cornered. Kipps pulls out a bomb and like launches it in a way where the salt kind of rains down on it, the salt and iron, and kind of dissipates the whole thing. And they see the apparition kind of flee to its source, which allows them to locate the source.
Yeah. The bones are buried beneath like a flagstone type thing in the floor.
Yeah. Bury people inside your house. Never a good idea. Don't do that.
Well, it worked out for that guy. Like, well, presumably he wasn't arrested, or we don't know how long ago this was.
Though. Like that's what keeps happening.
Well,
to these people.
We don't know that the haunting. To the guy who did the murdering, whatever, he didn't get haunted.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe emotionally he did.
Hopefully,
yeah, I guess. But if what we're saying is right, then doesn't sound like the type of person who would worry about it.
Yeah.
On that happy note, let's move on to the next chapter. The chapter 20 was pretty short.
Yeah, short and sweet. It's good little ghost mystery. But
it is always nice
to
see that. So I'm so sorry. It is always nice to see them do a job quickly and efficiently, and not have it get dragged out into, the type of thing where Lucy throws a water bottle at Lockwood's head or whatever.
They would have had, this was an easy one, and they would have had it done even faster if not for Grandpa.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, go with 20.
In chapter 21, Lockwood and co. tour the village, gather data about the creeping shadow, and meet Steve Rotwell.
I'd completely forgotten that Steve Rotwell visited them prior to everything that happens.
Yeah.
And so when I was looking at the chapter art, I was just like, I literally wrote down gloves, but why? Like I had no idea why these were gloves.
Yep, a pair of posh gloves.
Anyways, so they dug up the kids' bones. All's well that ends well at the Old Sun Inn.
Right.
The grandpa isn't really ever mentioned again, and I do wonder... I guess I just wonder what he thinks now, but we never really get anything else about him.
Yeah, this changes the attitude of Danny towards the group, but you don't, and like the father continues to be like pretty obsequious, but yeah, you don't really hear anything about Grandpa anymore. They feel pretty satisfied that they were able to clear this out on the first day, and they're like, let's go do some more good work. Like they're pumped up.
Yeah. So Danny takes them on a tour of a town, pointing out where a lot of the hauntings happen, and they interview a bunch of the villagers for more information. Danny also mentions a different little girl who saw the creeping shadow in a different place than where he saw it. And Lockwood says that he would like to talk to her, and Danny's like, yeah, she's dead.
Right, so, yeah. Sorry
ghost
about
touch.
That. There's a lot of sightings of this thing all over the place. So it's really wide ranging, like
which
Danny
is weird
them.
for a ghost.
Yeah, it's unusual. So that's one of the, I think we're supposed to notice that. And then as they're going around, they hear like it's a very low tech English village. And then there's like a bunch of cars revving up that kind of disturb everything.
Mm-hmm.
This caravan of trucks pull out of town and they have Rotwell insignia stuff on them. So it feels like a real intrusion of modernity to me in the ancient village. We're talking about ghosts and all this stuff, and then all of a sudden it's like, ugh.
And like just the inn that had the type of floor that you could dig up.
Mm-hmm.
That's an old fucking inn.
Yeah,
that's probably cold as balls in there.
For real. And it's like they feel very out of place, and it also is like interesting how the technology feels out of place in this town, because that's kind of what's happening. That's like the real problem here. So
do we think Skull is on these trucks?
I don't think so.
You think he's already there?
Just because I feel like Lucy would hear him or something.
That was kind of my thinking too, because as we've seen previously, they can kind of feel each other.
Yeah. It is daytime though, so maybe he would be quiet. I don't know.
But it hasn't been that long, right?
Yeah, they could be here at the same time because they immediately came here. Yeah. So it could be the transport from London. Yeah, for sure. I never thought about that, but yeah, it's totally possible.
It just gives me the idea that they almost like broke into that building before Skull got there.
Right.
And they never would have found him.
Yeah. Lockwood's not, I don't feel like Lockwood's too interested in that. That's like Lucy's thing. He really wants to know what's going on.
I think Lockwood's interested in getting Lucy what she wants.
Yeah. It's like a secondary It'd be nice to get Skull back, but not for any reason other than Lucy wants him.
Yeah.
To her, it's the point of doing this. Yeah.
Yes. Well, not all. Yeah. So Lockwood is like, you guys continue interviewing people. Lucy and I are going to go investigate a thing.
Yeah, we're going to go up to this place. It's like a lookout tower or something, but it's not really what he doesn't care about the tower.
Yeah. He wants to take a look at the old Viking battleground, which is where the Rotwell Institute is.
Right. This place I'm talking about is called Gunner's Top. I don't know if it's just a hill that I, in my mind, made into a tower. So it might not be a tower at all.
I got the impression that it was a hill, but I could be wrong.
No. It's probably just a hill.
And all of the Rotwell Institute buildings look like they were put up very quickly and haphazardly. And they say that the roofs are corrugated, but I'm like just picturing the walls that way too, just like stapled together, basically corrugated metal.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm sure I'm not quite right, but it sounds like it's pretty breezy in there.
By being the battlefield, it also lines up with what we saw at Akemere's, where the circle, is built on like the old prison, which was also like the plague pit. There's like, this is a site of trauma, and Lockwood even takes the guess of like, is this the place of blood that we've been hearing about? Because it's useful to build these kind of things at a site of trauma, it seems.
Yeah, where a lot of people died.
Right.
I'm also just really glad that they had Lockwood say that.
Yeah.
Just to make them smart.
Yeah.
You know, just so that they're paying attention to the same things we're paying attention to, you know?
Yeah. It would be bad if they were in there and then one of the bad guys is like, oh, sure do hate being on guard duty here at the site of blood, you know, or that kind of thing. It's like, oh, thanks. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely good writing to have your detective detect.
You would think that would be obvious, but so many writers...
No, I think you're right. Yeah. Especially with kids fiction, it can be, you talk about this all the time, how it can be really condescending to be like, well, he's a kid. He can't figure this out. But that's like why you're reading the damn thing, right? Because you want the kids to be smart.
So after they check it out, and obviously both of them are like, so we're breaking in? We're breaking in.
Right. Yeah.
Not right now, but they're going to do it. They go back to the inn to meet up with the others, and this is like the most intelligent growth ever. Lockwood doesn't just burst in and say, guys, we're breaking in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like book one, Lockwood would have been like, hoo.
Drop everything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
They've been gathering like a lot of information though, and like creating a real cluster hub like we saw with Chelsea. Yeah. But arranged in the way that like he's already doing like his Chelsea map kind of thing to figure out what's going on.
And also just to keep track of them all, that they have to go deal with all these hauntings.
Right. They're kind of prioritizing, you know, what's what around the town, and then also like having special markers for like, okay, the creeping shadow is seen here, here, and here. Like, does that tell us anything?
And as they're sort of talking about how long that's all going to take them, they hear a car pull up outside. And then, as we mentioned, Steve Rotwell walks in, and he gets like 2 paragraphs of description. And I'm not going to lie, I skipped over most of it.
Before we even know his name, there's a lot of like, what?
Yeah, it's like at the end of the second paragraph. It's like Steve Rotwell in person.
And of course, we met Steve Rotwell in the previous book where Lucy got to watch him murder a guy right in front of her.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. Like, I remembered that we met him on the carnival, but I forgot that he just killed a dude.
I love how this whole thing aligns itself with the way that Penelope was behaving, where there's a lot of like assumed power and privilege in the way that he just walks into this place and sits down while all of them are standing up and starts just like, which one of you is Anthony Lockwood? Get over here. We're going to have a conversation. You know what I mean? Like just taking charge.
He says which one of you or whatever, but like he did meet them all last year or last book.
That's like a power thing, right? It's to be like, hey, you're beneath my notice. Like,
And
Sure,
then,
we
but
met. Who
afterwards
cares?
he even admits it. He's like, yes, I remember you all, blah, blah, blah.
Right. Yeah. He's one of those CEOs who loves to be slapped on all of the merchandise. He's just has real small dick energy to me, you know, like he's just very scared that nobody knows who he is or takes him seriously. I don't know.
Second best.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. He characterizes them all as Penelope Fitz's lackeys, which
I do enjoy how Lockwood is like, not us. Well, Kip's was, but not us.
right. Yeah. So I think he does interpret their presence here as like a play by Penelope to encroach on this thing that he's up to over here or see what's going on, but he's just totally wrong about that.
For some reason, I did not make that connection. I thought he was just trying to insult them by calling them Fitz's lackeys.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. That does make sense about why he would give them the time of day.
Yeah. I think he was trying to like, they would be like, oh no, he knows who we are, but he just misjudged the situation.
That's interesting then. He probably doesn't even think about them breaking in to destroy things.
No, I don't
steal
think
things.
Yeah, he doesn't take this seriously in the right way.
Yeah. He thinks they're here for information about what they're doing.
Yeah, that they're spies and not saboteurs, which they really are.
Which is the biggest, like, second best small dick energy,
Mm-hmm.
because Penelope's so far ahead of him, she doesn't care.
She doesn't, yeah, she already knows all of this stuff. Like, she figured this out a long time ago.
Yeah.
I love how George, the food jokes continue. He's like, if you're hungry, there's probably some stew. To be like, to me, that's like, this stew is terrible. Here, you should eat some. I don't know. Just the way that George is with food.
That is exactly what George is saying. Because as we've seen previously, George will keep what he wants for himself.
Right, exactly.
To the point of awkward rudeness.
One of the most underlined things here is Lockwood's smartass response to him, which is pretty good, where he just blatantly says, Mr. Lockwood, what are you doing here? And Lockwood says, I'm drinking tea and studying a map. It's not very exciting. And then he's like, I mean here in Albury Castle. You know, so he's like, be serious with me. People seem to like that.
I guess just sassy Lockwood.
Yeah.
But they go on to explain that they were invited by the people of the village to see to the ghosts, and Rotwell kind of implies that there's like agency territories that other agencies don't infringe upon, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. People in London go anywhere in London, you know, like...
This is great. This is so dumb.
Like the Fitz agency is not limited to the area around where their building is.
Yeah, right.
Neither is anyone. Like he made that up so blatantly.
There's just this. I think there's also a thing. I think any kid could like instantly understand this bullshit coming from an adult.
100%.
You know, like where there's like all these fucking unwritten rules that are buried like mines out in the world, and then you do something, you don't understand why everybody's mad at you, and then the adult's like, well, we don't need to tell you not to do that. And that's just like being a fucking kid in the world. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
It just sucks. So this guy, he's just has that adult energy of like, follow the rules, especially the unwritten ones.
But this isn't an unwritten rule. This is a thing he made up.
It's bullshit. He's just telling them to get lost. He thinks that they'll be scared of him. He's like, get out of here.
And Lockwood sort of plays along and says, you know, they went to you. They asked for help from you. You said no. Mm-hmm. We said yes. So here we are.
If this is your territory, why is it in disarray? Like, what are you...
Yeah, exactly. If you've got all that fancy technology, why aren't you helping these people?
Right. This whole moment is like a real showdown between this enormously like muscled, handsome, rich man and a teenage boy, where like it means, I believe, that you will keep pushing the boundaries until one day you go too far. There are witnesses here, so I openly warn you now, don't cross me. If you do, you will regret it. And it's like, what better way to bring yourself down to the level of a child than to threaten him? It'd be like, everybody here is seeing me threaten you right now. So everybody remember that. And I'm going to leave. It's like, what are you doing?
And he says, in the meantime, good luck with your little ghost chase. I'm sure you're well qualified for it. I don't know why, but I hated that line. Like in a good way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just shitty to be like, oh, the work you're doing is meaningless and it's all you're good for anyway. It's like,
exactly.
Whatever, dude. You're literally doing nothing. You're coming down here to intimidate a child. So good on you.
Then, of course, this visit had the exact opposite outcome. And
course.
Lockwood is like, I was 50-50 on investigating, but now I'm all in.
Yeah. Wait, that's obviously where we need to go. So he's just a complete tool. In previous books, and I've talked about it so much, how the bully characters, Stroud immediately makes those characters look foolish as they bully people. And I think that in this book, this whole book is more sophisticated and ironic than any of the other books. We don't get that immediate undermining of Steve Rotwell because I don't think at this point we need it. We just understand by him behaving this way, he is being set up for a fall.
Yeah.
No one is intimidated by him. No one is scared. In fact, now we know where our target is.
And that coming here was the right plan.
Yep. Yeah.
And that is the end of chapter 21. And in chapter 22, Lucy and Lockwood see the creeping shadow, followed by a host of the dead. And the chapter art is the creeping shadow walking through the graveyard.
Yeah.
Not at all how I picture it, but
no, me neither. But
I picture it more as like a creeping, slimy thing. You know what? Like like in Spirited Away, not a stink god who comes to the bathhouse. Yeah. Okay. That's how I picture it.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I don't know if that is accurate to what is described in the books.
Yeah, I don't know. I see it as I can't remember the name of it, but it's from the movie RoboCop. This is like embarrassing.
Oh, I haven't seen that in a really long time.
Sure. So there's I think it's like Ed 209 or something like that. It's like the fully robot cop thing that the company builds. And it just walks around in a really awkward way on two legs. What's that called? Stop motion.
Yep.
And so that's just how I imagine its movement to be like when you watch this thing, it moves in a really unnatural, creepy way. And it looks vaguely humanish.
I guess that's how I picture the actual
thing that it is. Yeah.
Yeah, the actual thing that it is.
Yeah.
But seeing it this way, and you know how the stink god or whatever was dropping sludge, I picture this guy dropping shadows and stuff.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, the picture is great because it is I love how it's low angled to make the thing look really, really huge too.
Yeah, the picture is more similar to your RoboCop image but you can see smoke coming off of it too. Anyways, night fell in Aldebury Castle, and our troop of adventurers get to work.
I really like this stuff. How, again, they get to be really competent and good at their job. They split up and start tackling the map.
Lockwood and Kipps go off, and George, Lucy, and Holly go off. And I really love this bit where George is like, I'm going to do this. One of you has to be leader. You guys decide. It feels very much like he is on purpose forcing them to confront some of their issues.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I see what you mean.
Decide amongst yourselves. I'm not a part of this.
Yeah, I'm not getting involved in that.
And they do. They perfectly politely kind of be like, Lucy, you take a bit and then I'll be in charge for a bit. And Lucy never has to deal with that because Lockwood steals her away later.
Right. Yeah.
So it all works out.
We did skip over Kip's looking out the window, and I love it's so cute. He's just like, there's a ghost, and there's a ghost. You guys come over here. Look, there's ghosts. And they're like, Jesus Christ, Kip. It's like, yes, we know. No big deal, man. But he's he's looking outside and he sees, this is really interesting. He sees two cloaked figures on the green. They're standing close together, hoods down, huddled like they're sheltering from cold, and ghost fog is coming off of their capes, and then they run away.
Popular fandom theory is that is, like, are we just going to talk about this now?
A little bit. We can bring it back.
Do we care about spoilers? I can never decide if we care about spoilers.
Well, it's a spoiler within the context of the book, which is definitely the way that we're talking about the book. So
okay, cool. Fine. So people think it's Lockwood and Lucy. Do you think it's Lockwood and Lucy? Because that would really... I do think it is. I think it messes with Tom. Don't. Yeah, so... I don't see... Like, all the ghosts, the time stuff, whatever, that we've seen, it has been ghosts from past deaths being here in the present. We have never seen anything other than this one paragraph that is not, for sure, of a future thing being here in the present.
Right, yeah. This would be Lucy and Lockwood later in the book. This is the fan theory, because they use the cloaks. When they're in the other world, it's very, very cold, which the ghosts wouldn't care about. So why would they be huddled from the cold? And then they do go to that exact place, and then they run away while they're there. So people interpret it, like, why have all these details in this little thing, if not for, people to put the pieces together.
You're not wrong. I kind of like the idea too, but has Stroud ever said anything about it? I don't
know if he has. But it's interesting, in the sense that it plays with time and like how does that work? Is it because they're alive? When they see the creeping shadow later, does that mean that it happened days ago and they're only just seeing it now, or how does that work?
Or did it happen tomorrow and they're seeing it now?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like
is the creeping shadow? Yeah. Because when they cross over, it's just after that dude comes back, right? So maybe it's that crossing.
Yeah, exactly. Like the whole thing that they see is the climax of the book in a way. Yeah.
That's interesting.
So it's
I'm not fully either way. I could be convinced either way.
It doesn't really matter. It's just a creepy idea when you reread the book. You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah. And it is very specific, the way that Stroud describes these two figures.
Yeah. And I don't think that it matters. I don't think that it tells us anything special or unlocks anything. I mean, maybe it would. If he writes another book, it might be important. This idea of time dilation or whatever's going on.
It's interesting time stuff, timey-wimey.
But yeah, so that happens, and we can think about it when we get to that point later and see if there's anything that backs it up at all. I don't remember there being anything, but we can keep an eye out. But anyway, it goes to George and Lucy and Holly. George is like, I can't be the leader. I'm terrible at quick thinking. Why don't you take the first tour, Lucy, like you said, and then we just never have to deal with that because they get split up again.
It's very neatly done.
Yeah.
So yeah, they find a ghost, or they head to their first ghost, and they deal with it pretty quickly. And then I think they do a couple more, and then they're going along to another house, and they run into a ghost that isn't on their map. And this one is, I picture it kind of similar to the ring girl with the hair all covering the face and its head down, so they don't see the ghost's face for a long time. And George is like, what's the face? What's the face? I need to see the face. It would help if I could actually see the face. And it's got blood on the dress. And then as soon as they see the face, the eyes are missing. And that's where the blood is all coming from. And they pretty much have a Ghostbusters scream and run away moment.
They run away. It's pretty good.
And then they're like, let's just meet up back. Let's go back to the end. Let's regroup. Time to regroup.
Yeah.
It's great.
It is nice to see them, they get 3 ghosts done right away. And like I said, this kind of shows that Rotwell, with a whole huge facility of stuff could be managing this problem for these people and just doesn't care because they're able to start mopping this stuff up immediately. But yeah, they go back, and Lockwood and Kipps are already back at the hotel. I wanted to mention a thing of ghost lore here that George talks about. I thought this was cool. I think it's with the ring girl, like you're saying. George says visitors always rotate counterclockwise.
Oh, yes.
And they never turn clockwise. And Lucy's like, that's cool, George. Now shut up. It's most famously expressed in like Dante's Inferno as they like hell is like a circle. And
Right.
they go counterclockwise. It's more like a spiral, I guess. They go counterclockwise around hell, and that's how you go down to the bottom. So it's just like a very, very old idea that is thousands of years old and shows up in lots of different cultures. So just one more of those things, like you said, it keeps going back to like the Greeks and stuff that ties it to the real world.
It's interesting because I think a lot of people in our day-to-day lives forget that clockwise was decided because of sundials.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
So it has to do with the
natural
rotation of the earth and like the natural stuff, and making counterclockwise kind of unnatural.
Mm-hmm. There's also like a weird like right hand is good, left hand is bad thing too. That's part of it. At least in the Dante's Inferno thing it is.
Yeah. Which obviously we don't believe that.
It was true when people had to fight with swords, and putting your left side forward made your heart more vulnerable to getting stabbed. That was bad, actually.
How was that your heart was like... I understand that we think of it as being on the left, but I always thought that it was more generally middle.
It's middle-ish left, yeah.
Middle-ish left, okay.
Easier to stab through the ribs on your left side than the right side.
Okay, cool.
If you ever need to stab, not that I know, but like if you do need to know where to bury a body, don't bury it in your house.
I couldn't. If I... I just have this image now of me like breaking into our floors and like jackhammering through, and then, oh, it's the parking lot. Whoops. Just leave it on top of somebody's car.
That's good. I took us backwards for the counterclockwise. I don't know if it was worth it, folks, but
no, I actually did find that interesting, but I didn't make a note of it, so I'm glad you brought it up, honestly. Yeah. Anyways, worth it to also note that Lucy has decided to walk around without carrying her iron chains or any iron, so that she can listen.
Yeah.
Well. And she does hear the ghost just say, "My eyes. Have you seen my eyes?"
Oh, that's right.
Which is creepy and weird. So they get back to the inn.
Yep. And then they decide to split up again, but differently.
Lockwood. Oh, because Lucy mentions that she's here. She's sort of feeling a faraway sound or feeling or whatever, like that's almost the same buzzing that the bone glass had.
And Aikmir's. Yeah. She ties that all to cluster background noise.
Yeah.
And Lockwood's like, oh, I take that seriously. So we need to locate that.
Yeah. Yeah. So he kind of wants to use Lucy as a dowsing rod.
Right. Yeah.
Which Lucy is perfectly fine doing.
She's like, good.
That's what she wants, I'm pretty sure. And while they are starting that up, Lockwood just has this line that I don't know why it got me when they're talking about the ghost that they ran away from. Lockwood says, yeah, he being George, he's got to hang up about girls with parts missing. I want to know both more and less, you know?
Poor George. He's just running into those things.
And so as they're dousing along, as it were, Lockwood does what he couldn't do on the cannibal case and very neatly brings the conversation around to asking Lucy to come back, but doesn't quite get to it because the creeping shadow interrupts.
Yeah, he's like, what's going on? You know, am I paying you? Are you paying me? Are we paying each other? What is even happening anymore? He's like, what would make it simpler? Is if you just came back.
But he doesn't get to that. I think it cuts off on simpler.
What I like about that part, he says, we could always do something much simpler. And then it says, I wasn't listening. I shook my head and held up a hand. I like that because it's an exact inversion of the previous book, where like Lucy's on the job, and Lockwood is like, but our connection, but our love, you know, like, so I like that they have switched places, kind of. I think that's really important, actually, in a relationship, to where if you can be in the other person's emotional space actually, and like learn how that feels, it's a lot easier to give each other the grace that you need to have to be like two people in a relationship, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that's true of any two people ever.
Yeah, any kind
Like,
of relationship.
If you're better if you're good at putting yourself into other people's shoes and like just generally having good empathy, or even in situations like this where you're kind of forced to be on the other side of things, it makes you a better person.
So I love that it's just naturally gotten to this place. It's just really good. It's good to see Lockwood grovel too. It's very satisfying.
Yeah.
I don't know if grovel is right, but like,
no, but like he obviously knows that he fucked up.
Yeah.
And again, he still doesn't know exactly why Lucy left, but he does know that the reason that she gave is not the whole story.
Yeah.
And so I think he probably even more than anything thinks it was because of, if not him specifically, a lot of his actions.
And he's not wrong that this whole situation is like needlessly complicated, but is also shown that they work well together still, and like nothing bad is happening and everything's actually going great. So like, what are we doing?
Who they are to each other, like money wise, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hasn't come up in a couple chapters. Like it just hasn't mattered, which does just go to show that they all just sort of fell back into being an agency together.
I like a little bit earlier than this too, how he talks about Holly's role, and it doesn't upset Lucy at all. Like when they're talking about like George and Holly and all this stuff.
Yeah, and he even says that Lucy could be a good role model for her, to trusting her supernatural instincts.
Yeah, and I really like when he talks about that. I've been encouraging her to trust her talents more. Her time with that oaf Rotwell didn't do her any favors. It just reminds me of how I see Lucy's development in the first couple books, where Lockwood like gave her a safe place to flourish and grow. And the same thing has happened for Holly, which is just a really beautiful way of like showing how different ways that you can run a workplace where people can actually like develop and grow when they feel safe.
Yes.
Just contributes to success in a meaningful way.
And it really shows Lockwood's potential for being like a really good boss.
Yeah, he's a good leader.
Which is a weird thing to say because like sometimes he doesn't bring his money or whatever, right? But in this, we see him telling us what he did with Holly, but also saying that Lucy could be a good role model for her is also him saying that he trusts Lucy in the way that she trusts her talents, which is the exact opposite of what he was saying in book 3.
Yeah. And I think he's not lying. I don't think he's just saying that to...
No, I also think that.
It's real. Yeah.
I don't think Lockwood ever really lies.
No, he's not manipulative, but like,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm just always suspicious of like men, like he cheated and now he's trying to get her back and I'll just say anything, just baby, come back. But he's not like that. He's such a good guy, actually.
Yeah, but like even in him being kind of shitty in book 3, he wasn't lying. He was just...
Yeah, he
was just shutting people out.
Yeah, he was just terrified.
Anyway, so we see the creeping shadow. It basically does exactly what Skinner boy... What's his first name?
Danny?
Davy? Danny. Oh, how Danny described it. It sort of slowly stalks through the graveyard and ghosts rise up from the graves behind it. And then I couldn't tell if they stayed risen or if they like sunk back into the earth.
It seemed like it went out of the gate and they all followed it out of the gate. So I don't know if they like vanish later. It would be really weird for them to be able to go far away from their sources.
It would also just suck from like a job point of view, because as far as they're concerned
yeah.
at the moment anyways, they'd be like, oh, we just got rid of 6 and then we watched them raise 10. That
Yeah.
sucks.
It's like a Hydra. Yeah.
Yeah. Ghost Hydra. Ooh, that sucks.
Bad. Yeah.
But we have that really great moment where unconsciously Lockwood grabs Lucy's hand.
I marked this too. Yeah.
And I just genuinely think that was what inspired sort of how they act in the show.
Yep.
A lot of that unconscious hand grabbing.
It just says it very quickly. It says he motioned with his head without looking at me. His fingers stole out and gripped mine. And then it just keeps going. And it's only like a few pages later that they're like, oh, whoops, we're holding hands.
But even then they don't make it awkward. They just sort of let go. Like it's not a...
Yeah.
I feel like earlier Lucy would be like, but what does this mean? But why? And she'd be freaking out. In this, she doesn't freak out. Maybe it's because they're scared, and they really needed it to just hang on to some life right there. But also I do think it's that they're both a little bit more mature. And also Lucy's had some independence, which helped her a lot.
Lockwood just kind of clears his throat and she pushes her hair out of her eyes and they get on with life.
Yeah, and they start sort of talking about what it could be and how it could be. And then they stumble back towards the inn, and that is the end of the chapters that we are doing this week.
Yeah. I do like how when we see the creeping shadow and it's like making all the, or no, I don't know about making, but all the ghosts like follow it out of the churchyard. Mm-hmm. There's just like a show don't tell thing of like mastery over death happening there. If that makes sense. Like you remember in the previous book in the Hollow Boy, you talked about like Lucy drops down into the hole and then the ghosts all crowd around her and she's like, stop, wait. And all the ghosts are just like, yep, okay, whatever you say, boss. This thing is kind of doing that too. It's like at the head of the parade. And I don't know that it's commanding them in the way that Lucy was, but this is the thing that like the Orpheus Society was talking about, right? They're like, we want to be able to cross over and to control things. And so like to see that in action is creepy. It's powerful.
It is very show don't tell. Absolutely. I don't really have anything else to add. I find it more difficult to get in the moment creeped out by books than a movie. Like I find books linger with me more, but movies will, like visuals will creep me out in the moment. But this is pretty creepy. Did you have a best joke?
There's some good George jokes. I do like when they're talking about the eyeless creature. George has this whole thing like, why did it have to be the eyes? Why couldn't it be less significant body parts like the thumb or an ear? He just goes on and on and on. And Lucy's like, shut up.
I enjoy... I feel like there's very few one-liners in these chapters, but there's a lot of overarching jokes that taken all together are good. Like I mentioned, George trying to give the food all away. Like give it all.
Yeah, that's
give
good.
all the food away instead of being like, this donut is mine and I don't care what any of you think of me. Yeah, that's just a great way to show don't tell, I guess, and funny. I do also, as I said, there's something about that line, he's got to hang up about girls with parts missing. Like, I don't think it's funny. It's just weird.
Yeah.
Which is true of a lot of George things, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I did also like snort when I first read that, which is ironic for a former vicar or whatever he was.
Mm-hmm.
But the not believing in something he can't see.
Yeah.
That was
You
good. Think
that's like a vocational skill, like why can't you transpose that skill? There is a funny George thing with the vicar too, where like because he's so upset about the
I know what you mean.
about there's like a ship that falls off of the table and smashes into pieces, and George says, yes, you've lost a model, but you've gained an exciting 3D jigsaw. There's always a bright side if you choose to look for it. Which is like great. That's great.
And like I didn't listen to the audiobook this time, but I can hear that in audiobook George's voice, you know. most punk rock, I guess, deciding to break in and investigate despite that asshole.
Yeah, I mean, Rotwell showing up and Lockwood never, he just thumbs his nose at him.
Yeah, like that, the actual break-in hasn't happened yet, so maybe like what he says, drinking tea and reading a map.
Yeah, exactly. He's not intimidated.
The whole attitude there, yeah.
The whole thing is pretty punk rock too, of they're just like doing whatever they want in this inn, and the grandpa's like, no, stop, and they're just handling business. They don't care.
I guess I feel like the conversation between Lockwood and Routwell could feel very like, I'm a teenager, know-it-all bullshit, right? But Stroud did such a good job, of making Routwell come across that way, that know-it-all Lockwood doesn't feel that way at all.
He's so pathetic. Like, you just show up to yell at this kid. It's really well done. Because like I said, I just feel like the irony of the whole thing, he doesn't have to do the thing where, like the bully trips and falls and gets beat up by other people that he's done in other books, because Rotwell's whole behavior is the punishment. Like, he just takes himself down and then walks out. He's such a loser. That's what happens when you grow up and become an adult.
You become a loser.
Yeah.
And if you were a loser as a teenager, you're just double screwed. Double loser.
You need a pair of goggles to get your mojo back. Yeah.
I say that as someone who was a bit of a loser as a teenager. All right. So if you were also a bit of a loser as a teenager,
nice.
You can reach out to us on Twitter at Lockwood Podcast, or you can follow me on Instagram at Inferior Kate Reads. No cool kids allowed.
If you want to send us an email, do that at contact@holograndmedia.com, or go to the homepage at holograndmedia.com and scroll down to the bottom, fill out the form.
And remember not to bleed from your eyes, because it sucks.
It's scary.